Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm Pete Schultz here at Fishing Headquarters with my good buddy, Dave Ehlers.
Hey, everybody.
We are, Dave Ehlers is the one of the owners of Gulfstream Lures, and you guys have been making lures for a long, long time. How long have you been making flare hawks? How long has Gulfstream been in business?
Gulfstream's been around for over 32 years now.
Wow, that's crazy, huh? And
a long time.
So everyone that's going snook fishing, it's September 1st, it's right around the corner. We're going to be talking about some of the lures that you guys sell. What's the number one lure that you guys started out making originally? Which one?
The red-tail hawk. Standard red-tail hawk was the original 32 years ago. That's
Do you have one of those with you?
We do.
Can you show me what a red-tail hawk looks like?
This is your standard red-tail hawk. It's a bullet-shaped head. There's no flare to it. That's why it's not called a flare hawk. It's just a standard straight tie onto the shank, and that's a standard red-tail hawk lure. They come in anywhere from a quarter all the way up to 3 ounce.
So the guys that use those, Dave, pretty much started out fishing around the bridges and the inlet, because that's where the snook are. You know, most people see snook all over docks and seawalls and stuff like that, but really they're concentrated at the inlet and over by the bridges.
Your old jetty conchs, this is what they used to throw all the time. Standard red-tail hawk.
Perfect. So they take that out there, bounce on the bottom. How does that lure work?
That's all you want to do, is get it to the bottom. That's the whole key to fishing for snook in the inlets, the bridges, spillways. You want that heavy ounce, 1.5, 2 ounce, depending on your current, sometimes up to 3. You want to get it on the bottom, in their face. That's what you want to do. They're tight to the bottom. They're bottom feeders. They're not going to exert a lot of energy. As soon as they have an opportunity to flare those gills, suck in that jig, that's the key, is just having the opportunity to get it in front of them.
You know, I just want to mention that if you're watching right now and you have a question for Dave, just go ahead and type it in right there. We'll see it. It'll come across the bottom of the screen. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions. This is your opportunity to talk to the lure manufacturer, the guy who makes these jigs, to help you catch more snook, okay?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around for a second here, because I want to show them, Dave, some of the other stuff that you make. Okay, so here we are, and we are looking at a lot of the jigs that you guys make. So the first thing is, you know, here are the red tail hawks that you guys make. They come in a bunch of different colors, but really, these are the two most popular colors, right?
No doubt. Chartreuse and white. That old saying, if it ain't chartreuse, it ain't no use, is probably our #1 seller in all the flares.
Isn't that crazy how chartreuse has taken off over the years?
It really is. It's your #1 go-to color in almost any lure.
So after you made the red tail hawk, you guys came out with a new lure. This is the new lure.
In the early 90s, the owners of Gulfstream came out with the flare hawk.
Okay, we're back live, Dave. We lost connection.
So the flare hawk is probably our #1 seller all around. The flare in the lure actually allows...
We're going to go over here and take a look at some of the lures that you're talking about, Dave. There we go.
The flare actually allows the lure to give more of a body presentation. And what that flare does is creates basically a bigger bait. So when you have the red-tail hawk, which does not flare as much, you get more body flare in the water. It really moves and pulsates in the water.
I think it makes it look bigger too.
No doubt.
You know, when it's flared out like that and it's bouncing on the bottom, it definitely looks bigger. Like maybe it's a bigger bait. Like maybe it's a croaker instead of a, you know, whatever, a sardine.
We're actually not sure exactly what it looks like. It's always been the question, what does this actually look like? We don't know, but the snook love them like candy, that's for sure. And so after the flare hawk came out, we went to the pro flare, and what we did with that is we gave you a bigger black nickel mustad hook. We use mustad on all of our jigs. This hook is very strong. We've caught probably 180-pound tarpon on this one hook right here, and we all know that tarpon have very strong mouths. They're going to definitely test your tackle, and this hook holds up very well.
That's great. It's awesome.
But so, what we've done now...
Can you show that hook out of the package there, the plain hook?
These are smaller heads. These are just 1 ounce. This is your standard flare hawk head with a regular mustad jig hook. This is your pro flare with a 3D eye. You can see there's actually a larger flare on it. It gives it even almost that 90-degree flare. And then you have the black nickel hook, which is extremely strong, extremely sharp. And now what we just created is the Snook Slayer, and this comes in two sizes. It's only available in an 1.75 ounce and 2.5 ounce.
That's an odd size, right?
Well,
is that because of the way they had to design that head, I guess, right?
With the mullet shaped size head, and
gotcha.
So it's designed to look more like a mullet instead of just a standard bullet shaped head. But what we did in the sizes is we've always had people say, I wish you had it just a little bit heavier for those heavy current situations, whether it's spillway, when the water starts flowing a lot stronger, or at the peak tide, when that water's really ripping out of the inlet. So if you're normally using an 1.5 ounces and you're like, man, it's just not getting down enough, well, now you can go to that 1.75 ounces, or if you're used to a 2 ounce, now you have a 2.5 ounce option. But we've only come out with those two sizes in this one lure.
Ah, gotcha. So it's different, and it's new too.
It's different, it's new, and what we also did, if you look at a standard flare hawk hook, this is an 1.5 ounces versus an 1.75 ounces. Huge difference, kids.
You know what? It's a much bigger hook.
On the hook, it's just massive. This is going to hold up to anything that you're testing your tackle to, even those big grouper that tend to really put you to the rocks when you're fishing the jetties or the bridges. This hook is really going to hold up.
And over the last few years, we've seen an increase in cuberas being caught at the inlet. You know, same fish, you know, a 10 to 15 pound cubera at the inlet. Those fish pull really, really hard, and they have a big mouth. So getting a bigger hook allows you to make sure you don't lose that fish.
Absolutely. That big hook's really going to increase your hookup ratio on those bigger fish. When you're struggling with that 25, 30 pound snook, or those 80 to 100 pound tarpon that come cruising through, this hook is really going to withstand. And basically, you want to test the tackle, this one's going to do it.
So most of the guys that use feather jigs like this, whether it's the flare hawk, the pro flare hawk, your regular red tail hawk, and now the new Snook Slayer, they pretty much are fishing at night. Most of the people fish at night. Not always, but most of the people fish at night. I get the common question, Dave, all the time. What's the best tide to catch snook?
I love an outgoing tide. All the bait is moving through, whether it's your mullet, your shrimp, depending on the time of the year, your outgoing tide is definitely the tide that I look most forward to.
I see JP has joined in. Thanks, JP, for joining in. Maybe you have a question for us, JP. So if you're fishing, I see that you make them anywhere from a 1/4 ounce jig all the way up to 3 ounces. That's when the tide is stronger, like in the middle of the outgoing tide when it's really ripping. That's when you need the heavier jig.
That 1.5 ounces to 3 ounce, depending on how deep your inlet is. Sebastian Inlet guys, you guys well aware, 2 to 3 ounces, that's what you guys are using up in that area. Your Lake Worth Spillway guys, you guys are huge fans of the 1.5 and 2 ounce. Depending upon how deep your water is, you got to get it down quick, and how fast the water's flowing. That's what's key. You got those two things, you really can dial in what size flare is going to get down to the bottom and be in that strike zone for you.
I've heard people ask before, like on a full noon tide when the water's really coming in strong, it can increase quite a bit. I mean, the speed of the and as you know, the snook have to stay on the bottom. I mean, they stay on the bottom. If you want to catch them, you have to get your lure to the bottom because they're staying on the bottom. If you've ever looked at a snook, they're pretty aerodynamic where their head is turned down so that the current runs over the top of them. They need to stay on the bottom so that they're not in that strong tide or they're just going to get pushed away.
Absolutely, and if you think about the structure, whether you're fishing an inlet, those snook are stacked up near the sides, near the rocks where the current is less heavy. You don't see many people fishing smack dab in the middle of the inlet because the snook aren't there. If you're fishing the bridges, you look down, there's 2 pilings. Where do you see those snook fishermen? They're fishing the edge of those pilings. They're working that jig along that shadow line at night, and they're working it in front of that piling where those snook can line up right behind there and exert less energy from that current.
That's great. So I see that there's quite a few different jigs here, lots of different colors. We talked earlier about chartreuse being one of the most popular colors, and for a long time there was white and there was white.
Right.
And then they came out with chartreuse. But I see here you have a lot of different color combinations. Is it because of area, or is it just because snook fishermen we're all weird in our own little way? We know what bites well for us.
I think when it comes down to it, everybody has their favorite color, but ultimately, depending on what area you're fishing, you can travel up and down the coast, and within 20 miles, everything can change. You're fishing the Palm Beach area, they love chartreuse.
Really?
You start heading farther down into Miami, white seems to be huge. You get up in Fort Pierce, pink is their color.
Wow.
So everybody has their favorite, but we sell more of certain colors in certain areas. You can create endless amounts of combinations, probably 5,000-6,000 different combinations between our heads, tail colors, body colors. Go into your local store, come down here and see Pete at Fishing Headquarters, order whatever kind of colors you want, he'll make sure you get them.
So one more question, and that's about the red-tailed hawk itself, and why is that one longer strand? Why is it longer? What is the design of that to do?
Originally when it was created, the whole idea behind the red tail was to create blood, or create some type of trail. Like if you look at a wounded bait, the underside of it would be red and bloody. So that's where the red tail comes into effect. But as you can see, we make the tail colors in any color you can imagine. So you want a green tail, you want a black tail, you want an orange body, whatever nylon colors come in, you can get it created in that color. Whatever you think is going to work best for you.
Hey Dave, I wanted to show you this bag. I don't know if you knew that or not, but all those jigs in that one bag were for one customer.
All these 3 ounce?
He ordered all of those. There's a little tag in there with his name on it. All of those, because as you well know, when you're fishing around the bridges and snook season opens, you can lose a half a dozen jigs in one night.
Everybody always says, how many should I take with me? Take more than one, because more than likely you're going to lose the one.
Exactly.
No doubt about it. You'll get down there, your first cast, you'll get snagged on a rock because you're not used to fishing that area. Your jig is gone, and you're going to be going, wow, I wish I would have grabbed another one or two. It's a very inexpensive lure. You're talking anywhere from, roughly estimated $3 lure. You can grab a dozen of them quickly and have them filled your box, and you're fishing all day.
Hey buddy, I want to thank you so much for coming in the shop today and talking about this. I hope that you all enjoyed it. If you ever want to pick up some of these lures, they're available on our website. Come by the shop, check them out. They're available all over South Florida. So, you know, if you're looking for a jig that just catches snook, this is it. There's a lot of companies out there who make jigs, but this lure here is designed to catch snook. So, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time here on Fishing Headquarters.